Big thanks to Chris. He's staying up past midnight to give this presentation. So thank you very much, Chris, and take it away.
Yes, no problem, Greg, and good evening to everyone from near Inverness, and thanks for joining in. There might be one or two latecomers. I've got about 50 PowerPoint slides. I'm hoping to talk for maybe 40 minutes and give plenty time for questions, because I know that some of you are going to another PowerPoint. So anyway, I'm up in the northeast of Scotland, and maybe we could go to the first slide, please, Dave. Dave's doing the slide changing. I live out in the country, and we've had trouble with trees falling on the power lines and internet disconnects. It's been quite a wild winter here. Lots of rain, lots of wind. So I hope everyone can hear me clearly and can see the presentation. If you could go to the next slide, please, Dave, and we'll just, this is the sort of running order, just a bit of background information about me. I'm 72 years old, and the All Asia contest, I'll be able to say, send 5973 next year. And I've been very interested in our wonderful hobby all my life, although I've seen it change dramatically. Started off with valve equipment, tube equipment, you would call it. I just love it. I have recently stopped being the editor or the contributor to the RSGB's Radcom magazine. It's a monthly column, and it's really quite tricky writing 6 or 7 weeks in advance. You got to try and think what's going to happen in the contesting world. So I enjoyed doing that for the last 2.5 years, but I've stopped. And we did our best to try and bring some youngsters and newcomers into contesting. Been on a lot of DXpeditions. Very lucky. I worked as a teacher, and I was able to get early retiral. That's a secondary school teacher. I was able to get early retiral at age 52. My wife and I moved out to New Zealand, where I became ZL1CT, my initials, and really enjoyed our time there, but it wasn't really financially viable. It's quite a tricky place to live, New Zealand, but we had a wonderful time, especially at the ZL6QH contest station. Could we have the next slide, please, Dave? Which is a bit of a bio of myself. Okay, so that'll save, you can just read there basically what I'm saying. I've started off on 6 meters. They issued 40 permits for the whole of the UK back in 1982, and immediately started operating on 6. Conditions were very good. The highlight of my contesting career was when I travelled to the Isle of Man, where my friend Alec, GD6IA, lived, and I managed to win first in Europe on CQ Worldwide SSB. I think the fact that there were strong gales down in England and all the other stations had to wind down their towers might have been a factor. I'm a member of the RSGB Contest Committee, and I'm a founder member of the UK EICC since 2004. It's interesting writing for a magazine. I don't know if any of you have done it. You probably have a local club magazine, but you get very little feedback. In all the months I've been writing 27 articles, I've only had about 3 emails, mostly criticizing what I was saying or disagreeing with me. Did I care about that? No. Interesting operating from ZL6QH. It was it's all dismantled now, taken over by wind turbines, unfortunately. A wonderful site right at the southern tip of the North Island of New Zealand, overlooking the Cook Strait. And it had a lot of rhombics and V antennas, basically designed to rebroadcast the medium wave stuff from the UK. So they would receive the signals from the UK on the far side of the world on these big rhombics. They would have sort of diversity, simple diversity reception. They would pick the best signal and rebroadcast it on medium wave throughout the length and breadth of New Zealand. And I've got an old, in my garage here in the house, I've got an old mantle radio, which has got 4 sections, ZL1, ZL2, ZL3, ZL4. All the station names were named in New Zealand in the same way as the amateur call signs are nowadays. Been on a few expeditions. I went my first expedition in about 2003 after retiring with my wife Pippa. She loved it. We were on Niue Zulu Kilo, now Echo 6. With 2 trips there, actually 3 trips it should read, and a wonderful time. Went to Tonga, Alpha 35. Unfortunately, the location we went to was completely swept away in a tsunami about 4 years after we left. Very, very sad. All the buildings, everything, the beach, everything gone. Victor 6, Micronesia, fascinating. Lots of divers and lots of very much Micronesia truck. Very, very interesting history there. Just across the water, an island where the Japanese prisoners refused to surrender, and they went into a tunnel and blew up the entrance. Things like that make these expeditions very interesting. VK9CZ, Cocos Keeling, excellent site. Again, a lot of erosion of the beach between our 2 visits. The excellent palm trees that we used for antenna supports, all gone. A bit of irritation this year. We were going to be CQ Worldwide CW and a week either side in Christmas Island. You stop in Christmas Island en route to Cocos. It's a sort of triangular route. And we were basically muscled out by YL2GM, very unpleasant character who just didn't care about ham spirit. Really annoying. I'm trying to not get too worked up about it. Next slide, please, Dave. Okay, I love LOTW. I don't like QSL cards. Sorry, Don. I've got lots of QSOs on LOTW. I was a really early adopter of it, and I've actually got 33 different call signs on there. And I find it really, really handy, particularly the live uploads you can do modern via Clublog. You can use their live stream, and most software nowadays will let you upload directly to LOTW, the signed QSOs, I hope. Quite a low percentage of QSLs, but I think that's to be expected. A lot of the QSOs are local ones, like 80 meters within the UK, not really of very much merit. Next slide, please, Dave. Other interests, that's me on the right there with the hat, pointing at a vintage car. I've got 2 vintage cars that can't see it really well. That's my daughter on the left. We were trying to draw attention to it at one of our car shows. I've been to some excellent car shows in the US just on our trip in 2018. We loved that. It's actually a pickup, a ute from 1956. It's got the tiniest engine, about 800 cc's, and it goes very, very slowly because it's got a low ratio gearbox and a low ratio diff. But it just happened to be a nice sunny day in Scotland, which is quite rare. And these are my neighbours, some of these kids there. Next slide, please, Dave. My friend, my partner in crime when it comes to DXpeditions is Keith Kerr. He's a bit younger than me, about 5 years younger. He's a very well-known worldwide pathologist, an expert in lung cancer. And he's forever going off to conferences. He's been to Houston, all around the world. And he seems to do, I think, nothing of lecturing to 3,000 people in a hall at medical conferences. He went by himself 5 times on these expeditions out to 9 Mike 2, and I did sort of like IOTA expeditions to some of the rarer Alpha Sierra Islands. You'll find a bit about these trips. He came with me to ZK2 and, well, to all the others, and we get on pretty well. He usually thinks he can work more stations than me, but the truth doesn't necessarily bear that out. But we love a bit of competition. Next slide, please, Dave. Right, this has always been a wee bit of a puzzle for me. I'm old school. I love actual modes where you're talking to a person either by CW or SSB or even RTTY. You feel that there's a human in the background. FT8 came in 2017, so there's been now a whole generation of hams here who know nothing about SSB CW. In our local club, we've got a couple of young guys who are actually quite shy. They don't like talking to people. And of course, FT8, FT4 is an ideal mode if you're a little bit mic shy or you don't want to learn CW. Next slide, please, Dave. Just a quick run through modes. I hope this is not boring anyone. CW, obviously, first. Good old Sam. Then we had AM. These are very approximate dates, by the way, because I'm absolutely sure that amateurs would be testing these modes and not recognized. RTTY, about 1922, so just over 100 years ago. Single sideband, different methods probably, and then quite a step change in 2017 when the FT8 mode was introduced, and then 2 years later, double the bandwidth, twice the speed, more accurate timing required, FT4. Next slide, please, Dave. By the way, I forgot to give Keith his accolades. He has been world #1 on SSB and CQ Worldwide on 15 meters. It's really difficult to be a world #1 from this part of the world. He was world #1 on CQ Worldwide CW on 80 meters in 2020, which is quite an achievement. He's got 34 acres of land, which is a very much unusual situation. He's over near Aberdeen with a very good, so about 120 miles east of me, and a panoramic QTH. So he's done very well, Keith. Better scoring in the international events than me, that's for sure. One of the problems, and I noticed this, I don't know quite why, you'll see from the next slide, this is software that we learned about very early on. We tried all sorts of things, like connecting to Meinberg, connecting to all these online digital clock systems. When you're out on a Pacific island where the Wi-Fi is fading in and out, and it's only S3 at the best of times, you cannot rely on these internet-based Wi-Fi. And of course, if you've got a cheap laptop that's sort of disposable, if it's binned by Virgin Australia accidentally, you always have sort of cheap laptops. The clock in the laptop's probably drifting, so totally unsuitable for use on FT8 or FT4. So we found this freeware by Doug VK4ADC. He helped us modify it, and it's very, very good. It just installs on any PC. It doesn't run under any of that apart from Windows, but it's excellent, and it's pretty rock solid, or so we thought. Unfortunately, during our Alpha 35V and Alpha 35 X-ray, we lost the GPS timing for about 40 minutes. So we ended up with a log on SSB and CW where all the QSOs were logged with the same time for 40 minutes. So you can imagine how we felt about that. Goodness me, what are we going to do? So I emailed Antoine 3 Delta 2 Alpha Golf that we'd worked, and a couple of other guys that we worked, and they were able to tell us the time of the QSOs, and we were able to sort of unravel our log well enough to be uploaded to Club Log and to Logbook of the World. I must say I've not noticed any change in amateur behavior as we approach the sunspot's peak. I think cycle 25 is due to peak in 2016. That's one estimate. And really, people are not coming back from FT8 onto SSB and CW. Well, that's my opinion, and you might want to disagree with later on when we have the Q&A session. But it's rather sad because I love these modes. I love to know that I'm not talking to a bot. There's tremendous automation. We used it ourselves on Shetland. The ARRL don't like it, but when you're on a two-man expedition, you can just watch the screen and make sure that things are happening as you want. Next slide, please, Doug. We use these little dongles. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They only cost about $20. Excellent. They connect either to the GPS or to GLONASS or to the Chinese one, Beidou. But beware, buyer beware. There's a lot of utter duds out there. We had one which looked exactly like the one on the screen. My friend took it to bits, and there was actually nothing inside the G mouse case. It was just completely empty. So a bit of a rip-off that. But luckily, we bought about 5 of them for the DXpedition, and they really do give you confidence that your timing will be accurate, apart from any latency inside your PC or anything, which is usually maybe with everything else. So thoroughly recommend that sort of timing. Next slide, please, Doug. Puro 3Y0 Japan. Tough location, terribly difficult location. The US expedition had not succeeded the year before. Very disappointing for them. I'm sure that the helicopter pilots probably had never had any intention of flying. Well, that's my personal opinion. But the 3Y0J team, the leader, LA7GIA, unfortunately, I know best sort of guy. And he didn't listen to any advice about taking lightweight Honda generators. He didn't listen to anything about GPS timing for their FT8. And of course, they were all over the place, making it really difficult for the average Joe to actually find and work them. I understand that they went to the wrong corner of the island, the southeast, instead of the northwest, which would have helped for you guys in central USA. But I think that decision was made not out with their control. But just very disappointing for them. You imagine going all that way at all that tremendous expense, and you got to stand in the boat or stay in the boat and watch the people on the island operating in really, really uncomfortable conditions. So disappointing, but they did well for what they could do. Next slide, please, Dave. This is another one of the things you'll probably find me going on and on and on about if I had more time. When you go on an expedition, it's absolutely essential that you take everything. We make a big Excel sheet. It's just for a two-man DXpedition. We have something like maybe 600 items on an Excel sheet, and we take it off and we weigh everything. And we take, of course, we're traveling in business class because of Keith's 1 million air miles from his work. So I just pay the taxes. It's great to have a friend like that, I must say. And but we weigh everything down to the last 100 grams, and we pack the suitcases very carefully. When we got to Guam, the TSA didn't like our baggage, and they grabbed everything and did a major search. And when they had our antennas, they were sort of flexing the fiberglass poles, and we were thinking, oh no, please don't break that. And of course, you're watching from a distance of 15 meters away, but they were very careful, and they put everything back into the big ski bag that we took. You wonder why on earth you're taking a ski bag to the Central Pacific, but that's what you have to do. They're 1.6 meters long, and they're excellent for carrying these fiberglass poles that we use, called spider beam poles, made in China, sold from Germany, various different lengths. They go up to 23 meters high, which is 80 feet, nearly 75 feet. Really difficult to handle with just two people. whereas the 18-meter ones are absolutely excellent for an 18-meter vertical. Coming back to amplifiers, the first expedition we went on, if you could go to the next slide, please, Dave, we borrowed a homebrew amplifier using MRF 150s, and we had trouble with it. It blew up and we had to try and fix it. This is an internal view of the SPE Expert 1.5 KFA. It uses a single device. If you could just tap the mouse again, Dave, I think a wee arrow should appear. Yeah, underneath that toroid, about the size of a TTL chip or slightly bigger, is the LDMOS device. And when I opened up my amplifier, I thought, what the heck? 51 encapsulated relays. I thought, this amplifier has got to go. The reliability of this is no use at all. It's a complete turkey. Combine that with the fact that the company in Italy, SPE Electronics, are very, very secretive. They don't give you information. You ask for a circuit diagram, no. They've also used a single device, which is a fundamental blunder when building an amplifier. Next slide, please, Dave. The Tango 2 Charlie team found this. There's some poor soul desperately trying to repair or resolder in the LDMOS device under DXpedition conditions. Can you imagine trying to do that? You've got to unsolder all that toroidal stuff over the top. Really difficult. The devices themselves are soldered onto a large copper plate. You can see the shape of the device. It's in two halves. Some of you probably know this anyway, but it's designed for cell phone use where it's a sort of push-pull circuit or some sort of loop. So imagine the nightmare of trying to fix one of these on a DXpedition. I think this repair worked for a little while. I admired these guys. Certainly, I would have just put my head in my hands and said, let's run 100 watts and talk faster. Next slide, please, Dave. This is a ACOM company based in Bulgaria. They started off as a subsidiary of your American company, and then they started manufacturing their own devices, beautifully made amplifiers, really real quality components. If you get a chance, watch the video of the ACOM factory tour. It's just wonderful. They're obviously making lots of stuff for military use. And on that note, the whole of Europe is very nervous at the moment. There's real nerves in all European countries just with things that are happening at the moment. But I bought this amplifier, ACOM 2100, superb amp, and it uses a good old 4CX 1000A. Let's have some solid tube technology. Moving on, one slide, please, Dave. These can go quickly through. I was trying to work out why these LDMOS amps are so unreliable. They're designed for use 24/7, 365. So when you're cycling them, temperature cycling them in an amateur amp, they don't like it at all, and they blow up. I tried to work out the power density. It's not tremendously scientific, but if you go to the next slide, I know I've hurried you past that one. The power density roughly in the tiny little TTL-sized LDMOS chip is 146 times more than in the good old tube, and really makes me very happy with iMac devices. I've got one here beside me for the presentation I'm going to show you later. So the fundamental problem with LDMOS amplifiers, they've not really cracked the problem yet. I don't know. I know that Elecraft probably are using them, but I think worldwide there's still issues of reliability, and SPE are so secretive. Next slide, please, Dave. Right, let's get on to the main presentation before I run out of time, guys. Apologies for all that background stuff. Next slide, please, Dave. We were going to go to VK9X. That was not possible. Back in 2000, I thought, I'm going to phone our licensing agency. So I phoned them up very politely and said, please, could we have a special prefix for our expedition to the Shetland Islands, which are a separate multiplier in CQ Worldwide, Work to Europe, and of course the IOTA contest. It's Europe 12 up there. And there's very few local amateurs there. The population of the UK is only, sorry, the population of Scotland is only 5.4 million. Population of the US is 330 million. Population of Europe is 740 million. So Europe is more than twice the size of the US in terms of population, and the ham populations probably reflect that. But it's a multiplier. It's only a 14-hour boat ride, as Greg said earlier, from near where Keith lives. So after we got over the gloom and the rage of VK9XGM being cancelled, we decided to try and rescue something by going CQ Worldwide in November. We did get the use of the GZ. Unfortunately, the amateurs down in Cornwall in 2016 decided that they wanted 20 to use Golf Kilo. So they made a real fuss. They got their members of parliament, equivalent to your senators or whatever, and made such a fuss that the licensing authority withdrew our Golf Zulu prefix. But we're dogged guys. We persevere in pile-ups, so we're not going to give up on that. But at the moment, we have the use of the Golf Sierra prefix, which is not ideal, and we used our club call Golf Sierra 7 Victor. Next slide, please, Dave. There's the QSL that we got planted, and it was, as far as we know, the first time that the Golf Zulu prefix has been used. I see Don reaching for his card there to see if he's worked one. Thank you, Don. Well done. Next slide, please, Dave. Okay, just to give you an idea of geography, these are a bit not terribly good slides. It's that Great Circle Mapping by SM3 GSJ. You can center it anywhere in the world. It's quite nice, but I've zoomed out a bit too far. You can see from Shetland, the US is basically northwest through the auroral zone. Next slide, please, Dave. This is centered on Greg's QDH, and Shetland is, again, pretty much through the auroral zone. And believe you me, there's plenty of aurora up there. When you're in Shetland, you're at the same latitude as, let me get this right, just slightly south of, well, Anchorage in Alaska is 61.2 degrees north. Shetland is 60.2 degrees north. So the Shetland Islands, only 130 miles from the coast of Norway. Next slide, please, Dave. You can see the map here. Shetland's the little red up the top, only 130 miles away. The UK is roughly 800 miles from north to south. Next slide, please, Dave. There's the route that the ferry takes. We left from Aberdeen, sails up to Lerwick. It's a 14-hour overnight sailing. I'm not very good sea legs, despite having sailed right around the world in a container ship. There's a medication you can buy here called Stugeron. It contains a chemical, the active ingredient is cynarizine, which is absolutely excellent for motion sickness, whether in a ship or airplane. So I was able to sleep and woke up feeling strong. As you approach Shetland, you look out the window, it's dark. There's a little light every 5 miles. It's really, you think, gosh, where on earth have I gone? Next slide, please, Dave. These are the ships, much improved from our first trip in 2003. It was a really hopeless ship, very small. These are excellent ferries, and that's it, sailing up the west coast of Orkney with the Old Man of Hoy, the stack in the distance. Excellent ships. They've got 4 of them, very similar, same size. They don't roll about much. If you ever get a chance to go to Orkney or Shetland, you'll enjoy the trip. Next slide, please, Dave. I'm speeding up a wee bit. I put a wee tab there for Golf Sierra 7 Victor. We're smack in the middle of the mainland. We did find an excellent site over to the west, but when you're staying in a holiday cottage that's only available in the summer, they usually do them painting and stuff during the winter. Next slide, please, Dave. That's our Keith's car, completely packed up. Because we weren't going to an island, to VK9X, we were able to take a heck of a lot more gear, take some heliacs, take proper amplifiers, generally do it better than you would do if you were limited to 130 kg of luggage. Next slide, please, Dave. That's us on the boat, Keith on the left and me on the right, both of us looking a bit surprised. We left in the dark and you arrive in the morning. At that time of year, Scotland only has about 9 or 10 hours of daylight, and it's a long, dark winter. Next slide, please, Dave. Right, antennas. I'll spend a bit of time on this. We thought that when the weather was so awful that we decided after about 2 days that we could not achieve a 160-meter antenna. The reality is it would only have been for working mults anyway, but we might have worked another 40 to 50 mults, but it would have totally exhausted us. We were really struggling with the weather, bad sleeping. It was very cold in the little rooms, lying there, even with blankets. We were upstairs, 2 rooms upstairs were freezing. Downstairs was fine where we were operating from. So we put up these antennas all on spider beam poles, and we were surprised how well they performed. The ground was very wet, and we just could put up what we could. On our previous trip, we'd put up Yagis, but they were not terribly satisfactory. They were all too low. Next slide, please, Dave. This gives you an idea of the terrain. We were in that little cottage. The ground is very rough and bumpy. There's a few animals wandering about. There's one of our verticals. I think that was actually 20 meters. Next slide, please, Dave. You can see how spread out the habitation is. The little farms, we call them crofts, are quite far apart. There's a local community. That's our 80-meter vertical there. There's some water, a little lake or loch, as we call them, down in the right, saturated ground. And we had bandpass filters, W3NQN, but we spread the antennas out as far as we physically could to give us that extra element of RF separation, and it does make a difference. Next slide, please, Dave. That's another view, the cottage on the right and the farm buildings on the left. Okay, and the next slide, please, Dave. You can see the islands of Shetland are served by these little ferries that buzz about all day. They maybe carry 2 or 3 cars. You can see one in the distance just heading back to, they might do 6 trips to one of the smaller islands. I think there are roughly 80 islands in Shetland. Next slide, please, Dave. Another view of the site, not terribly interesting, but just giving you an idea of the terrain. They've just installed, you can just see it if you look carefully, like Don there, you can just see on the horizon the wind turbines, and these are going to be linked by undersea cable to the mainland. It's quite an engineering project, but they're installing literally hundreds of wind turbines throughout the UK. Next slide, please. There's some more of our antennas. We struggled to put these up. It was snowing, it was icy cold. We could only work for a couple of hours at a time, and then we had to rush in. Next slide, please. That was a wind turbine that was whirring away all the time, making a very ominous noise, as if the blades were about to fly off, presumably doing some local powering. Next slide, please, Dave. That's looking up the spider beam 18-meter pole. Now, you can see we've guided it in actually 3 places, and we've got top-loading 2 top-loading wires, and the vertical radiator is taken away from the pole. That's it, just on the left, and to lengthen it slightly. So that pole was about 16 meters high, and you had to top-load it to let it resonate on about 3.525, something like that. Next slide, please, Dave. Sorry, we're racing through these. There's the loading coil to help with the matching. Luckily, Keith had brought that lump of air ducts stuff, and we just clipped onto it, and it gave us a 1.2 to 1 approximately, and you can see two of the elevated radials, which are actually only about 6 feet above the ground. Next slide, please, Dave. In the shack, that's my station, Station 1, a 101D, which I really like. I've had a K3 since 2010, and the internal noise in the K3 is very disappointing. I kind of got used to it. The 101D is excellent radio, but does not have AGC slope. A very bad mistake by the Japanese designers. We wrote to them in Japanese about 3 times asking them to add this as a firmware feature, but they so far have ignored us completely. Keith Station, a simpler radio, the 7300, which actually performed very well in the heavy pile-ups. You wouldn't think a budget radio like that would do well, but it did. And the Meritron AL1500X, I think it is. Our third station, run by an operator called Len Ovo, he used the 450D and a little Tokyo high power amp, which I've had for years. Just excellent little amplifier, really well protected. Next slide, please, Dave. We're another 5 minutes, I think. This is the layout of the station. You have to grab all the furniture that's there and just use it. Tables, that's Keith's station on the right with the Meritron, and the 7300, the FT8 and FT4 station in the middle. Next slide, please, Dave. And that's Keith's station again. Next slide, please. That's my station with the 101 and the Bencher and the Alpha 91, which is made in Bulgaria. Next slide, please. Software. We don't like N1MM Plus, Jack of all trades, master of none. We don't like DXlog. It's badly written. It's got latency built in because of the structure. It was written in the wrong computer language. So we use WinTest. Super speedy, does not cover all the contests, but by goodness me, it's very easy to correct a call sign or overwrite something super fast. For FT4 and FT8, we used MSHV, written by LZ2HV. We used the GPS timing I was talking about earlier, and we did attend it. You can also use WSJT-Z. Next slide, please. This is our final score. I'm sorry I've had to speak rather quickly, guys, but I hope you're absorbing as best as possible, and it will be recorded and you can slow my voice down. We worked about 5,400 stations, which we thought was not bad under the circumstances. We're quite competitive. Keith worked 30 more stations than me, and I was very irritated about that, but nothing I could do about it. And we were quite happy with the final score, given the struggle we had installing the antennas, etc., and the very cold sleeping, just generally tough going for older people like myself. Next slide, please, Dave. This is the last bit of the talk. As we were leaving the last day, we went to visit this Luna house, Luna, L-U-N-N-A house, quite a substantial property in reasonable condition, given the wild weather that they get. Next slide, please, Dave. It was used during World War II as a base for the commandos travelling to and from the 130 miles over to Norway to sabotage the heavy water production factories, all that stuff. They travelled over in fishing boats, which left from Shetland and reasonably well disguised. Next slide, please. This is the owner of Luna House, who happens to be Tony Elwood, GM7AFE, a very hospitable guy, and that's Keith, and you can go and stay there. It's a very interesting property with huge libraries. Tony's wife is a writer, and they were very hospitable. And it turned out that Tony had visited us 23 years before. In October 2000, he had just moved to the Shetland Islands, and he came along and saw our first contest expedition. Next slide, please, Dave. There's one of the, just a little model, and the Norwegian people visit this place and stay. It's very important in the World War II history of that part of Northwest Europe. Next slide, please, Dave. Just some web links for the timing, ramblings from me in the middle about amplifier protection, and a little bit of history about the Luna House. And I'm sorry to have raced through it, but I hope you've taken something from it and maybe written down some questions. And I've got something to show you here. I don't know if you could put my camera back on, please, Dave. Let me just lean back. You can maybe see on the table, it's just behind my name, a device. And I'll be interested if you, well, I'll just go and get it. Hang on, I'll wave it at you. Stand by. Now, I'm sure if you worked in the broadcast industry, you're familiar with the 8161 or 4CX10000D. I had this is my last couple of minutes, 1 minute of the talk, Dave and Greg, don't worry. I was in a scrapyard, a junkyard, about 50 miles away from here in 1998, the 9th of April, 1998, a day long remembered. And a boy, as we were leaving, I saw this young lad with a giant paper capacitor. It was about 18 inches high. I said to him, "Where's that from?" He said, "It came out of one of these crates." So I went over in these big wooden crates, like on Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I got the boss to crowbar the lid of the crate, and there before my eyes was the anode cooler of a 4CX10000D amplifier RF deck. So I bought 2 of these for about $100 each, because they were scrap merchants. They only wanted the metal. And so I've been working on this amplifier for years. I don't think it'll ever get on the air. It's far too powerful, but I was very lucky to get these. They were used originally to communicate with the Concorde aircraft when it was being tested out over the Atlantic. They needed high power SSB. Anyway, I'm very mindful of the time, so that's me. Back to you, Greg and Dave. Don, did you find any QSOs done with GZ7V?
GS7V, 15 meters.
Good man.
The CQ Worldwide.
Is there anything you haven't worked on?
Yeah.
I've got almost 600,000 contacts in this index.
Good for you. Excellent. Well done.
But still, when you see a tube with handles, though, you have to take it or grab it or something.
Unfortunately, the junkyard crushed the power supply before I could go back with my trailer to collect it. So that was a little bit of a setback for the project. But I did get the transformer. It weighs about 250 pounds weight.
Yeah.
It's good for my muscles at an old age.
Oh, jeez. Did you have any QRN issues on the island this time?
No, we were lucky. Even the wind turbine, the main wind turbines just across the water, about 2 miles away, were not switched on. I suspect it will become a difficult RF environment in the future. And the local wind turbine was as quiet as a mouse. Oh. Generally speaking, QRN is not such a problem on these wetter islands because the insulators are all soaked all the time with. So we don't.
You've got salt. I thought salt water would
possibly, Greg. Yeah, you're right, Greg. Yeah, but we were lucky.
A lot of rain.
Yeah, we didn't put up any beverages, so we found it a little bit noisy on 80 meters with the vertical polarization, but we did okay.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're jealous because you had so many multipliers, but of course, Europe is good. And yet CQ worldwide for us, average contact is 2.7 points. Yeah. So that's where we have a bit of an advantage.
Well, people didn't seem to understand that we were a multiplier until the Sunday, and then it was much busier. Pile-ups were quite intense.
My NA software, which I just updated, had you correctly as the Shetlands. In fact, before the contest, I checked it just to make sure. So I was lucky. Maybe others weren't. Others had problems. Yeah.
So at 72, do you have other DXpeditions in mind for the future?
Well, Keith wants me to go somewhere, and we were very disappointed at YL2GM sort of pushing us out the way. It was very, very unfair. We had announced our DXpedition. We'd done a lot of preparation. We'd got the LOTW certificate, all that background stuff that you have to do months in advance. And then with about 10 days to go, he says, well, I'm going there, and it doesn't matter what you want to do, I'm going. So we were very unhappy, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So I think we will go somewhere else, but it's very tricky if you advertise in advance, far too far in advance, like 10 months, like we did, 9 months, you risk what happened. But on the other hand, if you don't announce a DXpedition till maybe 2 weeks before you go, there's a chance you'll clash with another expedition who have done the same thing. But you guys are in central USA, so you must have real fun when you go somewhere else. You're smack in the middle of a huge continent, so coming to Europe must be a bit of a shock, and likewise going to the Caribbean or anywhere else. But if you get a chance, do it. Just say to the XYL, I'm going on a holiday with a friend. And
you can still make a lot of contacts from here.
Yes, of course. I'm sure it's fun. Is there a lot of QRM in your area? Are all these 1,500-watt stations, or is it not too bad?
It's challenging, but boy, the CQ Worldwide, the first morning on the high bands, when all the Europeans are working other Europeans, and they're all 20 over 9, you get your comeuppance for a few minutes.
Yeah, receivers are better nowadays.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. Yeah, good point. Much better than my old. I've just sold my FT1000 MP to a friend. He doesn't do contests.
Chris, can you talk briefly about your the antennas at your home QTH?
Yes, I used to have high gain monobanders. I've got 3 towers. I've just taken down my 205 CAS, which are excellent antenna, and put up a very early Force 12 antenna called the DXer. Dates from about 2006. It was bought by my friend Jim, GM3BQA, who was one of the Scotland's top DX working guys. And he bought this antenna just before he died. So I was at a swap meet or junk sale, and he died shortly after buying the antenna, 2006. So I was at my friend's garage and I saw this box, and I said to him, "What's that?" And he says, "That's a Force 12 called the DXer. It's very early. The front to back ratio is very poor on 20 meters. It's only 3 elements, and front to back ratio must be at least 10 dB. It's not a patch on the 205, but it's handy because it gives you 2 elements on 17 meters, 3 elements on 20, 2 on 17, and 4 on 15. So it's ideal because I've got a 2-element Force 12 linear loaded Yagi, the one with the aluminium wire. Again, it's not great front to back, but it's neat. And I've got a homebrew 5-element YO Yagi and the wideband type on 10 meters. And I've got a 30-meter vertical. I sometimes have a 12-meter antenna, but I'm lucky in Scotland. Throughout the UK, antennas tend to be modest. There are only about 5 decent contest stations in the whole of the UK. Mike 6 Tango is the most. They've got 28 towers, of which of about 12 are in use. And they're down in East Anglia, but it's a constant maintenance situation. The Mike 6 Tango multi-op station you'll work it easily, but it's being maintained all the time. The Mike Delta 4 Kilo in Isle of Man is good. They've got about 4 towers. So very different situation real estate wise in your country. You're so lucky, you guys, with all these acres of ground, if you have that.
Yeah.
Are there height restrictions? It seems like nobody has tall towers.
Yes. Generally speaking, the zoning or we call it the planning permission are quite strict. They don't, you have to apply planning permission for a tower, and all the neighbours have to give a comment. So I guess it's a bit like some of your regulations, and we can't hide them behind trees so well as you guys can do. You can get further away. On our road trip in 2018, Pippa and I only saw one big contest station near Buffalo. We were driving up towards Niagara Falls, and on the right of the interstate, I think it was, we saw maybe 4 towers with monobanders, big towers. I have no idea who that would be, but that was really the only big station that we saw. We saw some tri-banders, but we loved your country. We're coming back. We loved it. Everyone was very friendly.
Nice. Good to hear. I like that.
Anyway, I'm watching the time, and I know some guys have to go. I'm sorry I had to sort of race through things, but feel free to email me or watch this presentation again or ask Greg or Dave. But I hope you've enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. That was good. Very good. Thanks. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you,
My
Chris.
pleasure.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, Chris.
Good
Take
night,
care.
everyone.
Out we go.
Thank you, Chris.
See y'all.
Bye, everyone. Bye from
Yep.
icy Scotland.
Bye.
Bye-bye.